My name is Jing Xu. I'm the president of CAPA. And Chao, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Chao Wu. So it's my pleasure to be here for the conversation with our future BOE board candidate.
My name is Tess, and I'm a freshman at Howard High.
Script. My name is Tia Yu, and I'm going to 7th grade at Howard Branch.
So this event is a joint action of CAPA, Howard County Chinese School at Columbia, Howard County Chinese School at Cajunsville, Chinese Language School of Columbia, and Peiying Chinese School. This interview will be recorded and shared with our community after all the interviews are complete. We have solicited the questions from our community, even from the kids. These questions cover a variety of topics that Chinese families would like to hear your opinions on. This interview will help our community to make an informed decision in November's election. Would you please give a brief introduction of yourself, Ms. Delmont?
My name is Christina Delmont-Small, and I'm running for the Board of Education of Howard County. I presently have 2 students in the system. I have a son who will be a freshman at Centennial High School, and I have a daughter who will be entering the 5th grade at Centennial Lane Elementary School. I decided to run for the Board of Education because I felt that advocating on the outside, I was not seeing the changes that parents and students and our community wanted to see in our school system. We have an amazing school system, but we can always be better. And I believe it's very, very important to have voices of the parents and the students and the taxpayers on the Board of Education. And right now, I do not feel as though those individuals are being represented.
So we'll get started with questions now. First, CAPA and other community organizations would like to initiate an Asian American Community Roundtable. We would like to invite local elected officials and community leaders to meet with Asian Americans in Howard County on a routine basis. Would you like to participate? Any other thoughts on increasing open communication between HCPSS and the Asian parents?
I think having a roundtable is a very, very good idea. And I would like to see the roundtable as not being an end, but being a beginning of discussions between the Asian community, elected officials, and the school system. We have a very diverse community in Howard County, and I think that it's very important to hear from those different voices. And we are not hearing as much from those voices right now. I believe that if the school system particularly would be more open and welcoming to these different communities and listen to them prior to making decisions. We need to have our different community members, especially the Asian community, involved at the beginning of the process, not at the end of the process. Because if we want to affect change and make sure that all of our students are represented and that we have a school system that truly meets the individual needs of each of our students, we have to start the dialogue at the beginning, so that we can make sure that there's follow-through and accountability for what the different communities want.
Second, in the past years, it seems that increasing numbers of students are placed into GT programs. The size of the GT classes is forever growing. At some schools, more than 40% of students are in GT Math. There are also some schools that try to place more students into GT English. The teachers have to slow down the pace to accommodate the students who are struggling in the GT classes. On the other hand, some students feel the class materials are repetitive and they are not being challenged enough in the class. What are your thoughts on this issue?
I have heard these concerns from other parents, that it's either one or the other. Either the students, there are too many students in the class, they're bored, or there are too many students and others are holding them back. I think what this is indicative of is us having to look at how we are placing our students in GT. I think we need to reevaluate how we are making these decisions, because in hearing this and seeing what's happening in the schools, obviously it's not working. And I think this also shows a problem we have elsewhere within the system, is that decisions are being made at central office that are being implemented in the schools. and it's a top-down approach. We need a bottom-up approach. We need to hear from those teachers who are providing the GT instruction, sit down with them as the board, have a dialogue with them, call the parents in. So if we're going to make this change, we need to have both the community and our educators part of that discussion, because too often the board is making decisions just based on what they're hearing from central office and not hearing from the individuals who are on the ground in the school with our children providing the lessons.
Third, we believe the school system should raise the floor without pulling down the ceiling. It benefits everybody in our community when each student can achieve his or her highest potential. To raise the floor, the school system needs to invest more in the programs helping kids who are lagging behind, such as the morning program and the summer program. We would like to hear your plan to improve these programs or introduce new initiatives.
Again, I think this goes to the heart of the issue, which is that we are not getting bottom-up information from our teachers and from our parents and from the students themselves as to where they feel they are not getting the support that they need. In the higher grades, I think our students are probably going to have a better idea of what specifically they need, and also the parents will have input on that. And then also for the lower grades, we need those parents, but we also need the teachers, because I speak with teachers quite a bit, and I'm hearing that they're not getting what they need in the classroom, and the teachers want to provide what is best for the students. Each child learns differently, and our teachers go through their career and their experience learning what works for these different students. But as we have a program that is so accelerated as far as where during this week they must be here, next week they must teach here, that week they must teach there. What if you have a class where there are students that need a little bit more support? The teachers aren't having the flexibility they need to deliver the instruction our students need. And we have to look at things that way, because right now we're looking at it from more of a perspective of what does the system need. We have to change from a system focus to a student focus. And I think if we do that, we will be better off. But it will take a change, I believe, in culture, as far as how we approach as a school system, how we deliver our lessons, because we need to get out of the way of our teachers and let them teach and let them be the professionals that they are.
Fourth, many students have shown that many studies have shown that socioeconomic status rather than race has a bigger impact on a student's academic performance. What are your views? If you were elected, how would you evaluate the situation and how would you make policies to direct the resources to the students and families in need?
It's very challenging for educators because there is so much that will impact the ability of a child to learn and to perform in school that they have no control over, which would be, for example, their home life. They don't know they cannot influence what's going on there. However, what we can do is we need to have a board of education that is able to work cooperatively with our county government to discuss, again, listen to the parents, listen to the educators, and find out what other supports are needed for our students and make sure that the county is able to deliver the supports that is in their ability. The school system should be teaching. But that doesn't mean the school system can't communicate with the county and say, for example, we know we have clusters of students that are hungry at night. How can the county direct their budget dollars to that? Because the challenge becomes when you take education dollars and start to move them in other directions that are not focused on education, we're fighting over should the children eat versus should they be educated in school. And we as a community, especially in Howard County, should not be put in a situation of making those choices. We should be able to direct the experts to do what they are good at, communicate with others to make sure that what we do is we look at the whole situation, but appropriately appoint funds and resources and expertise where it belongs.
Fifth, the school system conducted a survey on religious and cultural holiday observance. If you were elected, what would you like to see? How would you like to use the results of the survey to benefit the HCPSS community?
I think we should see the results, but I also would like to have an idea of the questions that they asked, because depending on the question you ask, will influence the answer that you get. And I think it would be very helpful, we should first look at that, but again, only use it as a starting point, it's not an end. It's very important to get data to inform your decisions, but you have to have an understanding of how specifically that data is useful. And I think there are other ways, again, that we can interact with our community to find out how the school system can be responsive to the different needs of the community, as well as to impact so that students know and have knowledge of different communities in the school system, because our demographics continue to change, and like all areas will continue to change from one point to another, and we have to be open to be able to move and change the system with that as well.
6th, do you support closing schools on Lunar New Year or Lunar New Year Eve, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Eid al-Adha, Diwali, Christmas, and Easter?
As far as with the school, when we're open and when we're closed, the school system has to conform to Maryland law. So there are certain times when we have to be closed because of Maryland law. However, the school system has to be able to look and see where it's practically possible to make these other adjustments to the calendar, because it is a give and take as far as with instruction, but we need to figure out how we can do that. And I think it would be very helpful, for example, for us to look back again, to look at data and say, okay, during these periods, what was the absentee rate of our students? And we need to be able to look at that to help inform those decisions. The other thing is that according to school policy, students are allowed to have absences based on religious needs. So I think this information needs to get out more to the parents and the student body, because it is an allowable absence. However, the challenge is it's an allowable absence, but let's say that a student is absent for an observance, and then they come back, the next day they come back, and then there's a test. What we have to do is, I would believe, look at a policy and say, if these students are out for Lunar New Year or these other holidays, when they come back, the instruction in the classroom should be flexible so that they don't have a test the first day they get back, because if they're out because of an observance, they're not going to be doing homework and they're not going to be studying. So I think if we are better as far as being respectful of that and create a policy that allows for that flexibility, so if there is a year where one of the holidays that are not mandated by the state, there can be an opportunity to be off, great, but if there's not, then we need to be able to have a backup plan, so to speak, so that we can respect these holidays.
How do you plan to increase Chinese language surveys and support in Howard County Public Schools?
I think again, it's going back to bringing the different community groups involved, such as your own, and talking to the parents and figuring out, because I think it's not helpful if we just say, okay, well, let's increase this, but we need to know how and where to increase it. We need to hear from those community members where the needs are, because we don't do a very good job of when we make a decision without that information. And I think we have to reach out and continue to have these discussions and say, where are we lacking? Because not only can you give us that information, I think the conversation also has to take the other step of, okay, well, if we're lacking here, how do you suggest that we do this? Because sometimes we don't necessarily, on the board, there are only 7 adults on the board, including the student member who are elected to represent the citizens of Howard County, and they don't have all the solutions. We need to bring those solutions in from our community and from other experts and say, okay, how can we best do this? Because to make a change that does not meet a need is not doing anyone any good.
Tia, do you want to do the rest?
Do you want to take a break now? And then we're going to figure out how to.
You want to sit here maybe, if I'm too far away.
Can we take a break? And
Let's take a break.
yeah.
Sure.
Start at number 8.
Take a break.